Welcome back to Toulouse Abridged. Last time we retook some territory that we lost in the part before last time. Then we went on to capture some more territory and then immediately lost it again to a rebellion. I changed focus to attacking an island in the Mediterranean where we've just scraped through a battle against an enemy army and garrison. To help out with the island situation, we can now move over this little group of trash. I've recruited a few levy spears and crossbows at Mercia, which is now defended by a garrison, so we don't need to defend it properly. And they can sail out towards Palma to help us out over here. I thought once they got into reinforcement range, we might be able to auto-resolve this, but the balance bar's not that good. And I'm guessing that's mainly because while we did defeat the enemy last time, we got trashed in the process, so our army is not really in good condition. I just left the siege going for another turn to get an extra tower and make a slight adjustment. In the next turn we can turn our naval reinforcements into a naval blockade, and this makes the balance bar look a lot better. Especially when we switch back to having the army lead the assault. Now it's the auto-resolve I was looking for. Maybe the extra siege tower made a difference as well. Don't really know, but we've got what we need. We auto-resolve everything to death, and we don't lose any units, so all's well that ends well. All of our men will come back now, thanks to replenishment. We will need to wait around before this place is able to sustain itself. It's not our culture again. It's going to need a bunch of money and a bunch of time to get it ready to use properly. But still, that's progress, and it's nice and isolated, so it's hard for the enemy to attack it. We don't want to leave our main force there though, because we've got other stuff to do, so they will sail back, and I'm going to have one general sit around, just so that the place isn't completely undefended and nobody can sweep in. One general still isn't all that much, but I'm hoping it will be enough for us to make this conversion right here, and grab ourselves a nice hefty garrison from a castle. Back on the mainland, you may remember I set up this siege last time. I said that this siege was going to be easy because the enemy had really low settlement strength. I was actually getting ahead of myself, I think. This place doesn't have that low settlement strength, and this siege wouldn't be that easy. However, our balance bar advantage is quite large because I've brought over some reinforcements recruited at Valencia. Because of that, we can actually just take this place for free with the auto-resolve. I say for free, the men we lost will come back by the end of the next turn or two, so it's effectively free. And there we have it, Toledo is ours, and this place I believe was controlled by our allies when we first got here, so that's a good capture. In the next turn we're going to move right on from this location and set up some more sieges, and this is what I was thinking about with the settlement strength thing. Well, not this one actually. This is a case where the enemy seem to have a big advantage in the siege, but we're just going to siege them out. We'll start making some equipment. Their army doesn't look that good. I think their balance bar advantage is either from towers or from their archers having good melee stats and that counting into balance barness in some way. Here's the actual battle I was thinking of last time. This Cordoba assault, where the enemy have a decent amount of stuff and we don't really, but their settlement strength is 0. So in auto-resolve I'm guessing that doesn't really do very much. But in manual resolve you get a massive penalty to morale and melee attack, and possibly something else I think, for having low settlement strength. So that situation is technically easier than it looks. We're going to set up another siege in the south actually. Our troops who returned from Palma are now almost ready to attack. I wanted to actually wait another turn to replenish, but it says they're not replenishing. I can't quite remember why. I don't think I ever discovered why, in fact. It may be because there is a manpower system in the game that can potentially stop you replenishing if there aren't people nearby to replenish from. I think in this case that's almost certainly not a problem because there are loads of people all over the place, but who knows. I started this siege with a small army for some reason, and then I just had to bring the other army over, realizing that the enemy could just sally and kill me. I also put some of the bigger army into the small army to see if it gave me more labor points for building siege equipment. Interestingly, it doesn't. Adding more people doesn't allow you to build more siege equipment, at least if your army is already sieging when you add the new people. Not quite sure how it's meant to work or whether that's working as intended, who knows. Anyway, over at Palma, I notice we're actually in trouble because there's this little group of a few units sailing around in the sea, and they may be enough to take the island. They must have a general, so that sort of counters my general, and then they have some more stuff. All we can do to prepare is try to get another general. There are no recruitment options and no mercenary options, which I've now learned just because there aren't mercenaries in the mod at all. I thought they just weren't showing up. Anyway, we can't recruit a general right now because we're at the cap, but I can get rid of a little garrison force at home. This unlocks another slot, and we can spam some guy out here. So now we have 2 generals bodyguards units. Maybe that will be enough to hold on. and in the next turn you can see the enemy did land and start a siege, so I guess we're going to test this out. Luckily it looks like their units are dead, we can only see one but it's at low strength. So maybe this is just a bunch of scraps, and when you add on the fact we may have towers if they do an assault, I wasn't too worried about that situation. So back on the mainland, we've got some sieges to look at. There are 3 sieges going. This, the most southernmost of the sieges, is probably the easiest one technically, on the balance bar at least. We've done this battle before really, and in this case I just thought, well, I can't be bothered to do it. So I decided to check the other ones to see if there was anything better to do for now. The northernmost siege is the opposite situation. While we have tons of troops, it's apparently going to be difficult, so I just left that and allowed them to make more siege equipment. Here with the middling siege, this is the one where we actually have the smallest army. However, we're going to go ahead and do this because this is the 0 settlement strength battle. So while it looks like it could be difficult, I'm expecting some good results in a manual resolve because of this debuffing. You can see it here, these swords have had their melee attack basically stripped away. It also debuffs their melee defense. Their morale is debuffed by a similar amount, but because their morale's quite high already, it doesn't make that much difference overall. But once they lose the flanks secure bonus, that may be more important basically. It should still be easier to rout them. It's the equivalent of the enemy having already had their general killed, and a bit more I think, the morale debuff we've got on them right now. Anyway, time to move in for the attack and try to make use of our theoretical stat advantage. The problem we're going to have right off the bat is that the enemy have 3 units of catapults, and I really did not expect them to bother shooting at my siege equipment, but they do, and that's a massive problem because we immediately lose 2 of the 3 ladders approaching from the east. The other ladder is now vulnerable, but there is one thing I can do to try and keep it alive, and that is to run forwards with the units already targeted. Because the catapults are targeted onto those units rather than the siege equipment, they won't stop firing at them now that the ladders are down. So we just run forwards to get into cover and try to absorb these catapult attacks, which I suppose we do. We take a few losses, but the accuracy isn't high enough for this to be devastating, and then we get into the position underneath the wall that should be out of the enemy's line of sight. While that's happened, our other ladder has got pretty close to the wall, and they do make it intact. So we've got an avenue of entry for our eastern attack group. Going up front, it's our levied spears, and here was the first test of our stat advantage. We're fighting some swords and some cav. I thought that in particular these cav would just die, since they have that low melee defense and their melee attack is nothing, so they wouldn't really be killing us. That though isn't really how it happens, and actually we're defeated on morale. Regardless of all that, you can see our levies rout at really high strength as we go over that ladder. That's devastating because we don't have troops to lose in this battle. Losing a full strength unit like that has severely set us back. I'm becoming increasingly reliant on my distractionary attack on the western wall, which is mostly crossbowmen. I can though start moving in my spear sergeants, who'll do a bit better since they have superior morale and of course superior stats. They should be actually stronger than the enemy. As for my crossbow attack, well, the enemy sent their cav to attack them as they went over the wall. Not ideal, but actually this went a lot better than I expected, I must say. The spears who were supposed to support them haven't arrived yet, and they're going to be contested by some crossbows in fact, so we can't rely on them. But what I can do is have one unit of crossbows just somehow tank all of this cavalry assault, while the other unit sets up to shoot into the melee. This only works if our crossbows don't rout, but I guess our crossbows also suffer from strangely high melee defense disease because they don't die all that fast to the enemy's cav, and we manage to hold on. Meanwhile, my spear sergeants, having gone over the wall, are attacked by enemy cav and manage to somewhat drive them away, but really we're suffering because the enemy have jav cav and they're just jabbing me up as we go over. This is another thing I failed to consider. Ranged units are effectively not debuffed by settlement damage because it focuses on melee stats. I'm not even sure why it actually reduces your melee stats. It's just a thing. As you can see, we get our spears into combat with these enemy crossbows who weren't paying attention, so that's good. And meanwhile, my crossbow sacrifice, crossbow offensive double strategy here is working well. The unit in the melee is somehow not routing, and the other unit's gradually sniping people off the corner. And there we go, we actually routed one of the enemy cav units. Not really sure how we're getting away with that. Perhaps the debuff is helping us out. Here we are a bit later. I came back to inspect this situation, I was really looking to see if our men are doing anything, the thing I always look for with crossbows, because I'm still not sure they work. In this case, they don't appear to be doing anything. It does say they're firing, but as mentioned, it might be that they have a really long reload time compared to the animation assigned to them, so they tend to just look like they're glitching out when they're supposed to be doing nothing. I don't know, but they are gradually killing enemies. Now with our Spear Sergeant assault, we've driven back the first unit of cav and the enemy are running out of javelins. We haven't quite lost our first unit yet, so now it's time for the real test. We're just going to have a melee blob here. In this case, the enemy's debuffs will certainly be helping us, but will they help us enough? At least the cav are going to be fighting our spearmen, and we presumably get some extra bonus stats because of that. While all that was going on, I actually lost loads of my chevaliers. I didn't notice this. It was the enemy catapults. They were firing at them and I just straight up didn't see. I think it's because the catapults turned off their flaming ammunition, which was revealing what they were doing before, but now they're being more stealthy about it, so we lost a bunch of guys. We're going to bring them in to help with the assault. Our crossbows have now finally defeated the enemy cav. No idea how that went so well. Very good work to them. Now they can move in, not only to support the nearby spears, but to actually go for the victory point. We need to dismount our chevaliers and start going in. You can see some of our spear sergeants are considering routing, and the enemy in that blob, well, they're not dying. For all their debuffs, they're not especially weak in melee as it turns out, so this is not happening, and it is happening to us in that they're killing us anyway, despite their lowered melee attack. So we need to get in there with the chevaliers, our high stats units, and try to tip the balance a bit. In particular, I want to go for the catapults and just take them out of the equation. Our spearmen were having a pretty hard time taking those crossbows down. You can see we've traded roughly equally with them in that melee, which is a bad sign, but I suppose it's to be expected in the new crossbows are a melee unit paradigm. You can see I'm following that paradigm myself. I've got these crossbows taking the victory point. I'm turning them off fire at will to hopefully not attract the attention of the heavy cav nearby who could just come over and kill me at any time. We're going to try and sneakily take the point without them noticing. Looks like we've taken out the first unit of catapults there. And just there, you might have seen a rock actually did fall into the melee. The other unit of catapults by the southern gate is shooting my men in the back, and that's perhaps why that melee is going so poorly. It should be going well, in theory, but we're actually getting wiped out. We're barely killing the enemy at all for some reason, and maybe it is just the catapult attacks have whittled me down more than is obvious, so maybe that's why we're in trouble. We're in trouble at the capture point as well, because annoyingly, the enemy general did turn around after a while, and now we have to deal with this fight. We cheekily get a volley in the melee at the last second, and now we'll just hold on. Luckily, we're holding on with crossbows, no better unit. Our second unit of crossbows will rush over to support. That means our spears will need to be able to beat the enemy's crossbows on their own, which isn't going very well so far. We need to go and capture this southern gate, basically. That's my new strategy. You can see I'm waiting here with some more chevaliers to get them in. I didn't want to dismount them. Having an actual cav unit in the town could be useful. So just need to take out a catapult crew, then we'll take the gate. Meanwhile, we hope our crossbows here don't die, and that is happening. They're dying real slow. We've even killed a few enemies, and overall, pretty satisfied with that. Soon our crossbow support will arrive, then we'll be in the money. Over here though, it's bad news. The enemy have routed and then come back from routing right next to us and were gradually shooting my men without them realising. It's weird because in Attila, the normal complaint is that there's no guard mode, meaning you can't force the behaviour we just saw to happen, but there they were acting as if there was a guard mode, and it was to my detriment, so in many ways, Attila hates me as much as I hate it. Now my chevaliers have successfully reached the enemy catapult crew. I hope to just quickly wipe them out because they're just a siege crew. However, they're not being wiped out as fast as I would like. On the other hand, the enemy general is being wiped out much faster than I expected, with my crossbows now shooting into the melee. That guard mode-esque thing happened again over at the gate. Luckily I caught it just as it happened. We need to keep forcing these crossbows into a melee until they rout for good and go away. If we do that, we can actually capture that gate as well. You can see we've lost the attack along our initial direction of assault, so it's all about these chevaliers here. However, some enemy cav have come over to join the fight. That means we're not going to be able to capture the gate, and the chevaliers are in fact trapped there. They can't escape. They're just going to have to fight to the death while I try to buff them up with my general to make them last a bit longer. We've started capturing that west gate, and we killed the enemy general on the capture point. That is sensational. Now the enemy are debuffed with like 2 generals worth of morale loss. It's not enough to clear up this situation right here, which is the main thing I care about, so that's a shame. Our cav need to tuck in against the wall here because some enemy catapults have come back from routing and are trying to hit them. But yes, we actually take out the enemy general's unit on the capture point entirely, so we're back to taking that victory point. And we do get it, with the music cutting out to celebrate. So now the timer is ticking down. If the enemy can't take it back, we can win. They obviously could take it back if they really tried, but right now they're very distracted fighting my Chevalier, so that's perfect. The other knights are going to go over towards the gate we've now captured, so I can finally bring them in the town and potentially use them for something. Meanwhile, a few units have actually started going back towards the capture point, so we need to hold it. The thing is, we can do this quite easily by just moving off the capture point. Since they're coming at us from a certain direction, we just make the fight be off the point, that way they don't have any capture weight, they can't cheekily decap it before the timer runs down. And that's it really, that's the strategy. Now we just wait, and it's really up to the surprisingly good melee defense of our crossbows, combined with the now very low melee attack of all these enemy units, to hold on. I'm guessing it works because these cav just can't kill our guys. Plus we can move in for some point blank range shooting with our second rank of crossbows. And here we are a while later, and the job is done. The victory timer is over, we win. A Pyrrhic victory. So there you have it. I really expected almost an exploit win in this battle. I expected it to be extremely easy, but actually, I guess that was the hardest fight of the campaign, and it was the crossbows, who I've been so mean to, who actually pulled the entire thing and carried that win. So congratulations to the crossbows, you've earned your way back into my good graces. And our reward for this victory is this absolutely trash settlement. Everything is wrecked. It's going to take us multiple tens of thousands of money and multiple tens of turns to make this place usable. But we worked so hard to take it, I guess we have to make something of it now. Our king died during the end turn sequence after that. I like to think it's nice that he lived to see the redemption of his horrible crossbow companies. So his death takes more characters away from our family. I had been working to try and get some more. The politics situation is still real bad. I need to spam the gather control thing and get some marriages going, get some adoptions going. I'll come back to that if we ever do escape from the weakness debuff zone. In the meantime, let's take a look at this. At Granada, it's time to make the attack I couldn't be bothered to make last time. We've got pretty much the same situation, but I think I recruited some more trash to help out as well. Still a manual resolve, and I hope to do this in the same fashion that I did the other attack on Granada we've already seen, that is, rushing along the coastline and making a beeline for the capture point. This particular attack direction again looks pretty good. There's not much between this section of wall right here and the capture point, so we just climb on up. We couldn't do any weird stuff with siege towers absorbing enemy missiles this time, but luckily the enemy weren't properly positioned, so we didn't take too many losses on the way in. We're mainly just fighting archers in that blob there. There are only like 5 spearmen in it. So we hack our way through them, very slowly of course, because it is the dreaded high melee defense archers. I was about to rear attack them, but these calves started charging at me and they could just rear attack me at the same time. So I turned round and I really wanted to form a shield wall here. I need to spam it because it's been disabled by the fact I was in melee, and I just went out of the melee as the enemy hit me. So I did click it, but I think I might have clicked it twice and actually turned it off again right away. Who knows? Luckily our swords don't get wiped out by that cav charge, so we're fine. Then we can gradually hack through the archers with our other swords and spearmen, which does work eventually, and once they're gone, we're golden because we can start filtering the spearmen into the fight with the enemy cav, get the swords out, and this little corner of the map is secure, meaning our route to the capture point is secure. I sent all but one unit to go towards the capture point. I left one unit behind because I suspected we might get attacked by more stuff coming over to this corner. That turned out to be the case. I guess I saw them moving in the background or something. Some cav rush over in wedge formation and then stop after realizing they've arrived too late. However, they spot me around the corner and come in for a charge. Figured it would be okay here because we're in the shield wall formation and the enemy didn't get a good run up on the charge. But no, we actually get trashed by this enemy cav charge. I expected better of my levy spears. We need to throw another unit in there to hold. And at this point in the campaign, I'm starting to realize these levy spears are just bad. They're just straight up bad. It's not like in some other Total War games where the levy spears are at least good against cavalry or something like that. In this case, they can't even beat cav head on, so we need to just not use them in our armies really. In this case, we can just about hold on by having 2 units. Our first unit's on the verge of dying and we're not really killing the enemy, but 2 units is enough, and I can bring over my general and use his buffs to increase our melee defense. More enemy cav are going to keep piling into that fight though. This becomes a hotspot of fighting between spears and cav, so we have the advantage, I guess. There's more cav actually on the capture point. We don't even get to the capture point without having to fight again. Luckily, it's our good spears versus their cav this time, so we can relatively easily hack our way through that, while also going to secure the other entrances to this central area of the town. My reinforcement spears from our trash backup army arrive to this fight with the cav on the corner, and they rear attack, so that's nice. It doesn't really do anything because they don't have a charge bonus or what have you, and the enemy don't rout, but it's going to make it easier to rout them. I think 1 unit here eventually leaves. There they go, in fact. And with all of our levy spears working together, we can grind our way through even if we actually take surprisingly high losses. Anyway, once all that was done, I noticed something. The enemy catapult on the bastion there is actually firing this time. Just like the last battle, it was glitched out at the start. It wasn't firing at my siege equipment. I think it's stuck facing this direction basically. Normally they can rotate a bit, but because it's stuck firing backwards, it only fires when you're actually behind it, so that's handy to know. We can get hit by it. Luckily it's not hitting us too badly, and we can just run away to get away with that situation. Meanwhile, the capture point has been taken and we just killed the enemy general, so the plan is going ahead as planned. I actually sent some spears to try and kill that bastion catapult, but they routed in melee against them, and then they were too low on morale to try again, so I just left them there trying to capture a capture point that's next to the catapult. Does that capture the catapult? I've never tried doing this in Attila, so I had no idea what that even was, and I didn't find out because we ran out of victory points before I captured it. So there you go, the plan worked. We took minimal losses to take the town, but it wasn't as good as the last time I did this. Anyway, that's the end of that, and now it's time to see if my plan with Granada as a whole has paid off. You might remember last time I looted it and then just left it, thinking if somebody else repairs it, we'll make some money off this whole endeavour. Well, it's still trashed, but I think it has been substantially repaired since the last time we were here. It gradually repairs itself, most buildings do, I think, over time, so just going away and coming back makes it cheaper to rebuild. I think if a building has no health or something it can't repair, but otherwise it gradually comes back. Who knows? Basically, we might have made some money by looting it, but maybe we didn't as well, and I probably shouldn't have looted it in the first place. Anyway, I saw the Marinid Sultanate have a very small force just next door, so I thought I'll go kill them, but as I should have known, they are allied to the nearby Caliphate. Therefore, I'd have to fight the garrison at the same time, and we're not going to do that. We'll just go back, and this is going to be the end of this part. We are now in a very strong position to complete the Reconquista of Iberia, except it's not going to be anything because it's going to be us taking it. Whoever actually lays claims to these lands is in trouble. So we'll carry on with that project in the next part.